Hello and welcome to another episode of Future Learners. I am Brett Campbell, the Chairman and CEO of Euka Future Learning. I'm joined today by my guest host, as always. Well, not guest host, actually. Let me start that again. I got a little bit bamboozled there, Alan, because we don't just have one amazing people joining us today. We've got two of you. So first of all, we are joined by Alan Brown, the founder and head of education of Euka. I got there, Alan. I got there. I don't like to take two takes, so we just need to let people know that this is raw and real as it happens in real time. But what I was just too excited to get to our special guests that we have today, and I'm going to jump straight into that. I'm going to say, Brooke, thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation about your journey with your son Noah and your affiliation with Euka and your experience and all of the above. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to take our listeners on a bit of a journey, and we're going to go back into time a little bit here. So we're going to test our memories. And I'd love to know from your perspective, where did it all start for you for homeschooling? Like what was the sort of moment where you're sort of sitting there and you're like, you know what? Homeschooling is the next consideration that I need to make. Take us back to that sort of time.
Okay, so Noah started kindergarten and at a normal local government school, and we didn't have a very great experience, and it was quite difficult. They made it quite difficult, and it was disappointing because my husband had always wanted me to homeschool Noah, and I was quite against it because I went to traditional school, so I thought that he wouldn't have social skills because these are the things that you think when you don't know when you're not in the environment. And so off we sent him to kindergarten, and he has a lot of health challenges, my son, and he's neurodiverse, and we didn't have any support for him, and he would go for 2 days and be off sick for 2 weeks, and the school would get funding for Noah and use it on other students, and they wouldn't send work home. And it was clear to my husband and I that he was dyslexic, and he couldn't hear, phonics, and we would be doing our phonics and reading to him, and he couldn't make the sound back to us. And I went to the teacher and said, I think he has dyslexia. Me and my husband are pretty sure. And, this is his teacher who's with him 5 days a week from 9 till 3, said, no, definitely not. He definitely doesn't. And I said, I also think he has autism. And she said, oh, no, there's no possible way. And I said, well, I also think he has ADHD. She said, no, I assure you, he's so compliant and he's quiet. And I said, well, that doesn't mean that he's not struggling. I asked to see his work, and his work was not one piece of work was completed. And so I thought, oh, something weird's going on. And I had friends that homeschooled and had listened to their, positive experiences. And Noah was never bullied. So, that's not our experience. I was bullied by the school. I will say that I was bullied and not listened to. And they made me feel like I was, I was wrong about my own child. And then COVID happened. And so, like the majority of Australians, we all learnt what home learning was. And everybody thinks that that's what homeschooling is, because we all had this experience with home learning. And it's not the same. And home learning for us was terrible. So we had no support from the school. And I'm not just talking about our experience, but everybody in the class. So they would send you home this work. The parents wouldn't understand it because math has changed since we went to school, and English has changed, and the curriculum. And some of the things I'm like, I don't know what this means. And I'll have to Google the words. And that was in first grade. And so then I started thinking, well, it's clear to me that he's dyslexic. It's clear to me that his reading level is not where it should be. And I'm going to work on his English first and see if I can get his English back to, where it should be for when he goes back to school. And we worked on his English and he did really well. And I got his reading level up 16 levels. And I think that he actually was reading at a higher level, but the teacher just was reading him at a lower level to make it easier. Or I don't know.
When you say 16 levels, can you sort of like quantify that for the listener of?
So at our particular government school, you would read a certain number of books, and if you successfully read them in the classroom without mistakes, they put you up a level on the book. So on the back of some books that Noah would bring home, they would have levels on the back.
Yep.
And he was at level 6 in year 1.
And how old was Noah at this stage?
6. So 7? Oh no, that's 7. Not right. I don't know. 6.
That's right. I asked the hard question.
I forgot at 6. He was 6. So
okay.
By the end of kindergarten, they say that you should be at level 13.
Yep.
And so in year 1, he was at level 6. And I was like, why is he still at level 6? But I found that his reading, he was actually at a level 27 by the time we were working with him. And so I was like, well, how come I can get him to read level 27 books, but the teacher's only got him on level 6? It just seemed a bit odd. And so when COVID finished, Noah's doctors and I talked about him going back to school because he's immunocompromised and has immune challenges and genetic issues. And they said that he would be safer until we knew more about COVID for him to be at home. So then I called Euka and I looked online for a few different programs, and the school really pushed for distance education. And I thought that was my only option. And once I talked to people at distance education, they said distance education won't actually suit you because you have all these appointments and you can't do the hours that are required for distance education day to day. You need something more flexible. So they were the ones who actually said homeschooling would be the best, solution for you. And called Euka, frantically, not knowing what to do. And they did everything for me and helped me. And we've never left and we've never been happier. So
amazing.
That's where we began.
No, that's amazing, and I look forward to hearing more about that. I'd love to double tap on a couple of things that you said there, and this is one of the things that I've always been, I guess thinking about quite deeply as it relates to, a teacher in a classroom. They've got 20, 30 children, and I'd like to say, and I believe this to be true, majority of them are doing their absolute best to try and help, right? However, 100%. some students just need a little bit of a push in the right direction or a little bit more attention potentially. So what I want to ask is, you took Noah's reading level from, I think you said, was it 6 to 27, if I remember correctly? Help me understand, because there'll be parents listening to this going, my child's reading level isn't where it is. You must be some magic reading teacher to help your child, climb up the ladder there. But what were some of the things that you implemented with Noah?
So just repetition. So reading the same book over and over and over until he could memorize it, basically. And then finding books of his interest. So Noah loves animals and dogs in particular. So I went online and bought every single dog book that you could find, and also Harry Potter. And so we would listen to audiobooks, were very, very helpful, because he would hear, especially in Harry Potter, these words that are, are quite difficult. Yeah. And he would hear them and he would say, oh, what does that word mean, Mum? And then I would explain it. And we would, when we were younger, I don't know if you remember, but we would get these CD books.
Oh, I was going to say, I remember record books.
I loved them as a child. It would play the CD and then turn the page when the chimes, and we used a lot of those as well, and made reading really fun for him. Yeah. And he just improved. And I'm not a teacher. I don't have any special skills. I love reading.
But what you followed was the principles of how do you actually teach most people anything, right?
Yes.
Firstly, repetition is key. Like
Yes.
you can't just read something once. So, I mean, look, there's some people who you can read something once, cool, got understanding of it, etc. But repetition is the key. I mean, I've got a 3-year-old right now, and I think repetition is the key of our entire household. I don't know how many times I've done that. Yeah. She's onto like 60-piece bluey puzzles, right? Super small pieces now, and I'm just like, how many times do we have to do the same puzzle in the same, like it's unbelievable. But you see, that's how they learn, right? And that's a really powerful skill that a lot of parents can learn. Because I found with a lot of my friends who have younger children, they're like, oh my God, if I have to do the same thing again, and they're often changing because they're bored with it, where it's like, well, has your child actually reached, the mastery of that in that specific situation? But the other thing that you mentioned there as well, which I think is hands down absolute imperative to learning and having the desire to continue to learn, because you can only sit down with Noah for so long to go, hey, let's read this. It's time to read this. But it's like, what you would obviously aim to have is when you're not around Noah and Noah's sitting on the couch or doing something in his room, it's like he's picking up a book of interest, right? And that's the big thing that you mentioned there is you went and bought every book known to man on a dog. So I have to ask, what is Noah's favorite dog?
Oh, a corgi.
Look, I've got a little bit
We
of
don't have a corgi, but that's what he wants.
I've got a little bit of a question about that journey that you went on, Brooke. So how did Noah go with that transition, from year one and into homeschooling? What was his feelings, and how did you prepare him for that so that it was a positive experience for him?
We talked to Noah about what he wanted to do as well. So we're a household that, he's included in most of our decisions, especially such a big decision because education is most of his life until he's a young adult. And so we talked to him about COVID. We talked to him about, the decisions. He was quite frightened of COVID because of his health problems. So he was quite happy to stay at home and give it a try. And we always said to him that if this at any time doesn't work for us or for you and you miss your friends, or we can change. Everything is adaptable. And that's what Euka taught me as well. When I rang up and said, how do I get my child's learning up? How do I get him to read better? They gave me tips like printing off the top 100 sight words and printing them and laminating them, and going over and over and over them with Noah until they were like in his brain. And then I sent them on to the next homeschooling family who told me they were having a challenge with their child's reading. Sorry, I went off topic. But he loves being homeschooled and he didn't struggle with the transition. He loves it. If someone came and said, Noah has to go back to traditional school today, that would be such a challenge. Whereas for us, the other way around, it was so easy for us.
And something you said a little bit earlier, you said your partner, husband wanted to homeschool Noah immediately. Is that because he's actually been homeschooled, or was it he just thought that would be the initial best thing for Noah, or he didn't want the schooling system? What was that like? Because,
probably the schooling system. He had a pretty negative experience, I guess, with traditional school. And he, now as an adult, is ASD, and he would have been and was a very disruptive student because he was bored and highly intelligent and needed assistance. But back then they were just classed as naughty children and they were sent out into the hall, and he was suspended quite a lot. And so his experience was that it wasn't suited for everybody, whereas I was a really good student and a really good, never got in trouble, always did the right thing, loved learning. So I was like, oh, he'll be like me. He'll love it. Like, why would I deprive him of that? And then by the time that COVID came around, we both had kind of switched. I was like, yeah, no, we're going to homeschool. And he was quite nervous. Like, we did a 180, both of us. But of course, he's supportive now. But, and and he's from the United States, so he learned on a different, he learned a different metric system to us. His English is completely different. Their spelling is different. So he was worried that if I wasn't here and he had to teach Noah one day, that he wouldn't even know. Because, when he came here, he didn't know what a kilometre was, what a centimetre was. Do you know what I mean? So he's learned as well. But
excellent. So you've now been on the journey for a couple of years homeschooling. It would be 3 years, wouldn't it? If I'm doing a time like
5th year.
5th year. Well, geez, time flies, doesn't it? Okay. So 5 years. What would some of the things you would share to parents who are considering potentially, homeschooling, whether it be for a specific need or whether it's just a desire or a want to change? What are some of the things that you thought you believed about homeschooling that weren't true? Meaning when you actually entered into homeschooling, you're like, oh, wow. Because I see this every day and in conversations I have, and even myself, still deeply understanding the industry itself. I think homeschooling is almost like a best kept secret in many ways. Like it's the education really isn't out there enough for families to try. And that's, I guess, another big reason as to why we're trying to do what we're doing here, is to share the opportunity that is out there. But yeah, what were some of the things that you believe to be true that you no longer believe?
So I had this outdated vision, almost like you see homeschoolers as like little house on the prairie people, like that you think that they're backwards in their thinking, or lots of children and they homeschool because they're afraid of the government, or like, this is what I thought. And then I watched an episode of Little House on the Prairie, and they actually go to school on Little House on the Prairie. So I was like, what am I thinking? Because they actually go off to this little school and they have a wonderful education, and they come home and they help on the farm. And I thought that they didn't follow the curriculum. I thought that they could do whatever they wanted, or they didn't have to do any work. I didn't know that they were regulated. I didn't know that they had to submit their work. I thought that their children would be socially awkward. I just thought, and everything I thought was wrong. Everything. Because everyone I know that homeschools, their children are so socially aware, and they're socialized, and they're not weirdos. And if they do have challenges, they actually get more support in homeschool than they would at traditional school. And if they are bullied, they're safe being homeschooled. And it opens up this world that not everybody has access to. And Noah and I are gone some days, 5 days a week, and have, like, how would he go to normal school, a traditional school, I should say, and see even the way that, and see, I get questioned all the time about why would I do this? And they feel sorry for me. They always say they feel sorry for me as a parent. And I'm like, why? I get to spend all this time with my child, and it is regulated, and we follow a curriculum, and we have to, submit our assessments, and it's the exact curriculum that traditional school is doing, but we're doing it around our lifestyle. And my son can be himself, and he's safe, and he's well, and I don't really care if people think we're weirdos, like, because we're not, like.
Yeah, that'll be the title of the podcast. We're not weirdos. We'll follow that.
But the thing is, like, even when I went to school, there were people. Everyone's different, and there were people that I went to school with that were, eclectic and, didn't fit into the box. And I think back now, and I think, they probably would have thrived in homeschool. They just didn't. Not everybody thrives in, especially boys and people who have ADHD. They can't sit still for that amount of time, and they're missing their life outdoors. And Euka lets us do activities outside, or in the library, or in the car, or any way that suits my child.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing. Let's share a few sort of tactical things. I know obviously there's lots of parents potentially considering homeschooling, but we've also got a lot of parents who listen to this who are, similar to yourself, been homeschooling for a while or just starting homeschooling, et cetera. And it always comes down to sometimes the Achilles heel of Euka is because, well, not just Euka, but homeschooling itself is that you can have a lot of flexibility. And sometimes with a lot of flexibility can become overwhelm of, oh my God, I just need to be told exactly what to do, right? But the beauty of having flexibility is the ability for you to help design, with parameters, of course, but you get to design your school day, school week, school month, etc. So myself and Ellen, we did a podcast a few weeks ago now, where we broke down, the average sort of, here's how you can plan your year, here's how you can plan your term, here's how you can plan your month, week, day, down to the minute. What are some of the things that you could share with our families around how you plan, and maybe if you want to start it as, how do you look ahead for the year? Maybe let's get, we're recording this and it's, we're still at the startish of the year per se, or we're coming into term 2, but how do you tackle looking ahead for the year? What are a couple of things you do there? And then we can sort of reverse engineer back to, then how do you look at a term? How do you look at your week? And then how do you look at your day?
So yearly, I obviously get the program for the whole year. And so I usually in the school holidays, I look at, I look through and see what materials that we need and what I think would suit Noah or might not suit Noah in the activities. And the good thing about the activities is that they are made for every type of learner. So Noah's a visual learner and a hands-on learner, and I'm not. I'm an auditory learner. So I, at the beginning, taught him like an auditory learner, and we were having this, frustration because he doesn't learn how I do. But anyway, I try not to overwhelm myself, and I do tend to plan more term to term. And so I have a corner in the dining room where I have all of the folders that I, print out in advance, put them in the folders, put them away, order the books that I need. If I need certain resources from the craft shop or the $2 shop, I go and get them so that I'm prepared. I like to be prepared in advance. I don't like to open the page and it say, you need 40 pipe cleaners or, like it doesn't say that, but you know what I mean? Like I don't
where's
want
the
to be
pipe cleaners?
I like to, know where we're going. And I think that helps Noah too, that if I'm organized, he's more likely to be organized too. And I have to still work with Noah one-on-one. So we're not at a stage where Noah's working independently without me. He does sometimes on the computer do computer work alone, but because of his learning challenges, I do have to help him. So I have to plan my days around him where I can sit and work with him side by side. And sometimes life happens and you can plan all you like, but sometimes you don't have any time to do any work at all. And that's okay. And that took me about a year to really be like, okay, I had to unschool myself, if that makes sense. Because I, at the beginning, wanted him to wake up at this certain time and we start at this certain time. And if he was having a bad day and we couldn't do it, like it just was so overwhelming for me. But now that we've, got further along and I've learnt more about the importance of sleep for him, and we can talk about that later if you like, that our days are much more flexible, and sometimes planning day to day is better than planning a year in advance. But if you are the type of person that likes to plan in advance, Euka can do that for you because it's all there. And that's the good thing about Euka, is that I'm so busy in my life with Noah and his, OT and speech and his doctors, that I needed a program that was a one-stop shop. So I can do the reporting, I can upload his work, they can, I'm fulfilling the legal obligations, and Euka's doing all of the work for me, and I'm just working with Noah the day-to-day. And that's what I needed. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people want to do the reporting themselves. But the new reporting particularly is so easy and you don't have to worry. And yeah, we're all busy and this just takes one more weight off my shoulders as well. So I don't have to. And the fact that it's, written by teachers.
I've just got a question around
in the office that can support us.
Registration, reporting, your connections with NESA. I'm assuming you've got an AP that which is called an authorised person, in case you're out there and you don't know what happens in New South Wales. So in New South Wales, you have
also might
a
want
person
to,
who
Ellen,
I like to think.
Ellen, you might also want to let people know what NESA is.
Oh, well, yes. Well, that's actually the Department of Education in New South Wales. So in New South Wales, the Department of Education has one area that handles their homeschooling, which is NESA. And then what happens when you join homeschooling is you're assigned to an authorised person who handles all the homeschooling people in one particular area. So before COVID, all of those authorised people would come out and visit you and sit with you and have a chat through what you were doing, what you're planning and that kind of thing. Now, when COVID came, that all turned into online meetings and discussions. And I actually have heard that most parents have found that to be really much more wonderful than having someone come out. So just your experience on that, Brooke, would be really interesting in, we've got a lot of parents when they first start that's a nerve-wracking part of their experience is that, getting in the APs meeting for the first time or even with reporting and work samples. What's your experience been in that?
So for our first reporting, I got Euka to do all of what they were called complete education at the time when we joined. Now Euka. So I rang Euka and said, "Can you please help me? I've decided that I do want to homeschool, and I need you to. What do I do?" And so I did a couple of surveys online to work out how what Noah's strengths were. We did some work. They submitted all the paperwork for me, and then the AP it was on Zoom, and I had to email. And they were very nice person. And I've had 3 or 4 different ones now. They're all very nice, but I still get nervous even to this day. Even when I know that Euka does the reporting, and everything's done for me, I still get nervous because I think you feel like they're going to say, "No, that's it. No, we're taking this opportunity away from you. You can't do it anymore." But that's not what happens. Euka makes it very easy so that everything is, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and, that you don't have to worry about any of that. But they've all been so lovely. It's usually like a 20-minute Zoom, and you just show some of the child's work and you talk about the understanding, like, is your child meeting the requirement or do they need extra work? In those meetings, if your child, does have some learning challenges, you can say, "Look, he's not at this level and we need to change the level." So I've spoken to Euka. For an example, if you have someone who's doing really well at English and you can move them up a level, you can do that with Euka. They can change the level. Or if you're having someone who's struggling, you can bring them back to a lower level until they understand more and then move forward. And so that's what you talk to your AP about. You talk to them about your daily life and what activities you do, like if you go bushwalking or, swimming or activities like that. And then they give you an approval. So our first approval was 3 months, and then we went again, and then we got a year approval, and then now we get 2 yearly approvals. And so it's not as daunting when it gets to 2 years because you have more time to prepare everything.
It's like anything, right? When you're starting new. Yeah. It's like starting anything new, there's always going to be the hesitation or the unsure nature of how something might pan out. Well, but, again, and to your point there, and that's the reason as to why we offer those elements of our, not just the curriculum, but it's the 2 other key drivers. The reporting and registration is a big thing because parents have enough to worry about on the decision itself, right? Than having to figure those things out. I'd love to ask sort of
easy. Sorry, it's so easy with Euka. No. I really recommend anyone who is doubting their ability to do it all, just try the reporting once and you won't go back. Right? It's so
absolutely.
Easy. Yeah.
So I'd love to just sort of finish up on what I'd say is the most important topic, and that is Noah, right? I want to know from your perspective as a mother, as you know what I mean, as a father myself, there's nothing I love more than my child, right? So the love that a parent has for their child is we do anything for them. So what are the things that you've noticed in Noah as, you know, as a young boy and growing and evolving? What are the things that you've noticed within him that, I guess, and I know you've been homeschooling for circa 5 years now, but pre-homeschooling and then now homeschooling, what are the things that you never thought you might have seen within Noah that, you know, you're seeing now, given that he's got that, you know, different level of autonomy to learn and take care of himself, and, you know, as he's growing? What are some things there that you've noticed?
So really early on, and I touched on this earlier, I noticed that his sleep was quite terrible, and I did a lot of research around it, you know, how to improve his sleep so that he would grow better and he would learn better and he would. So what we did was he had 3 sleep studies to make sure nothing was wrong with his sleep, and it was just his ADHD in the end making him, you know, incredibly hyperactive and hard to go to sleep. And so the sleep doctor actually said that he has a pattern of sleep similar to a teenage boy, so that he needs to go to sleep a little bit later and he needs to sleep a little bit later in the mornings. And if you could try that for 3 to 6 months to see if that would change things and change his health and change his attitude and make him, you know, more alert when he wakes up. And because when we all go to school and we go to work, we're all rushing in the morning and we're all like, get up, you're going to have your breakfast, you've got to put your shoes on, and we all leave on this terrible note. And that's one big positive that I've known since we've started homeschooling, is that he's not rushed to leave the house if we're not going anywhere. I let him naturally wake up his body. I don't wake him. And if he wakes up really late, then he wakes up really late, but he's rested and he sleeps. And he learns better on those days. And, you know, maybe that's just what's working for Noah, but I think we all need that we're all exhausted, we're overstimulated, we're overbooked. And I've noticed that change in him. He's more confident now than he was before. When he was in kindergarten and he was struggling with work, he wouldn't put his hand up. He wouldn't ask for help. He wouldn't tell the teacher that he was struggling. So the teacher could only do so much as well because he wasn't saying it. Now, if he doesn't understand, he says, "Mum, I don't get it. Can you please explain it in a different way?" Or I get my husband to explain it in a different way. What we noticed with the dyslexia, we did as much research as we could. There isn't very much help for dyslexia, but YouTube is a very good resource for anything or any challenges your child has. You can Google any information and videos will pop up. There's somebody in the world with the same issue that you're having, and so you feel less alone. Me worrying about him and his social skills have improved because he's having these in-depth conversations about topics that he loves and he loves learning about. And, you know, we have 3-hour drives to the Children's Hospital. They're like 3 hours one way, 3 hours back, and we talk about ancient Egypt and we talk about politics. And he loves WWE, for instance. He's obsessed. And so I get him to talk about the history of WWE and the statistics. And so he's learning as he's speaking and he doesn't even know. And he's happy and he's not sick and his immune system is not affected and he's thriving. And it's been such a wonderful experience for our whole family, not just for Noah. And he doesn't feel singled out because he's neurodiverse, and he doesn't feel different to other children in the class. And we work on his strengths, and what challenges him, we can come back to it later and or rework it in a different way, and we just adapt the whole program to him. And he's a happier child. And once
that's amazing.
When your child's happy, everything's good.
Yeah. Look, firstly, you touched on so many things there that I'm not even going to double tap on any of it because you said it so beautifully. So, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with us, and also share your journey, with the thousands of families around the country and also obviously around the world. And also thank you for being an amazing mum to Noah.
Thanks,
amazing to see,
much.
and keep up the amazing work. So thank you so much. And to our amazing listener, thank you for tuning in. If you've gotten value out of this episode, please head over to iTunes, Spotify, drop a 5-star comment. We'd really, really appreciate it. And if you got value out of this episode, make sure that you send it to someone else who you think might get value too. So with that being said, we will see you on the next one.